To all the fans, the draft represents the future. It represents new beginnings. It represents where your team will be this year onward. And to the prospects and to the parents, this is the culmination of your hard work, your energy, and your commitment.
Thank you for joining. I'm going live. I'm going to watch a little bit of this, but this is a big day
Thank
for
you
the
to all of
Silvertips.
you. Enjoy the lottery. Enjoy
We
the
will
upcoming
find out
draft,
that the
and enjoy
apparently the
Western
draft lotteries
Hockey
actually
playoffs
already
presented by
happened. Not to
Nutria.
spoil it. So we were, I think we were already notified the answer, but you're going to find out live. So today, as part of the WHL draft lottery,
hello and welcome to the 2024
we're going to see
WHL
where
Draft
Everett
Lottery.
picks. Is it
Picks
first?
made
Is
at the
it
annual
second?
draft can change the course of a
I
franchise,
think
and
we're
there's a lot at
fourth
stake
in the
this
ratings.
time
So we have
around.
Kamloops'
Recent
first pick
notable
from the
first
Olen
overall
Zellweger
picks
trade
include
last year.
Gavin McKenna and Burton
And
Catton, while several others.
basically, we're going to find out, do we get the first or the second overall pick? I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. And there's some really great players, obviously, that are coming up. Everyone's talking about Len DuPont. DuPont's a defenseman. His dad, Mickey DuPont, played in the NHL, I think, for Calgary, maybe New Jersey, but definitely Calgary. And he was a smaller defenseman in a day when, defensemen were big and there's probably more clutch and grab type hockey. Landon DuPont's got like insane edges. Like his skating is absolutely incredible. So if you're just going based upon who the best player is, probably Landon DuPont. A lot of people are very excited about him. There's obviously other players. The thing is he committed to the league? And that's going to be something that whoever picks first or second or wherever, depending on what happens, we'll have to figure out, because there's always competition from NCAA, and that's just a reality. Thank you for joining. Who are you looking forward to seeing in here? The other thing that's maybe less exciting for everybody else, but exciting for me, and I think we kind of already know where I'm going to pick, but I guess we'll see who picks. There's a lottery portion now this year at the U.S. draft. So for the WHL, our territory is basically in the United States from Minnesota across to California. And I don't know the exact other components of that, but the East is split them between Ontario and Quebec leagues as part of the CHL. So for the West, I'm scouting basically this year, 2009 birth year. So my job again is to figure out who are the best, 14-year-old Bantam players, and then wait for other people to pick, because we're like 7th in the country. I think we're third. We finished top 3 or 4. What are the final standings? I guess I should know this. So we just look at the final regular season standings. Oh yeah. So here we're talking about points per game average in the CSSHL with the Canadian School Hockey League. Connor Bedard was 2.233, and Landon DuPont's like 2.07, but he's a defenseman. Yeah, Brock Cripps, very highly rated, another really interesting player. I'm going to take off the captions, actually. That's kind of interfering with this graphic. It's kind of interesting. Tanner Mollendijk Brock Cripps is, potentially a top 5 pick as well. And I think the trick with all these guys is who's going to report. Will they come to the WHL if they're selected? Because the reality is, NCAA still considers this is the trade. This is us. Let's listen to this.
Number 3 pick on lottery odds, and they got that from Regina. They received it from Seattle, and they then flipped that pick to Kelowna for Colton Dock, a player who obviously helped Seattle win the WHL title last season. And finally, Prince Albert, who has the 4th best lottery odds this year. They acquired the Thunderbirds' first-round pick in the Nolan Allen trade, the Chicago first-round pick, who was another key figure in Seattle's success last year. So
let's just go back for a second.
Seattle and Kamloops had to move off some big assets to get good players in last season, but obviously the two off some big assets to Chicago first-round pick, who was another key in the WHL title. Acquired Kamloops pick last season.
Okay, so this is basically.
And when it comes to the draft lottery itself, there's been a lot of movement with the picks. Some of them tied back to some massive trades.
This is how we got
take
the
us
pick.
through how we got here.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of movement in the top 6 here for the lottery teams, Cammy. And so the first being the Everett Silvertips acquired Kamloops pick last season in the Olen Zellweger trade.
Olen, but he's
Kelowna has the
in
number
NHL
3
now.
pick on lottery odds, and they got that from Regina. They received it from Seattle, and they then flipped that pick to Kelowna for Colton Dock.
Those are the
who obviously
2
helped
finalists
Seattle
last year.
win the WHL
And
title
both-
last season.
They went
And finally,
to,
Prince Albert, who has the 4th best
Norfolk.
lottery odds this year. They acquired the Thunderbirds' first-round pick in the Nolan Allen trade, the Chicago first-round pick, who was another key figure in Seattle's success last year. So we see that Seattle and Kamloops had to move off some big assets to get good
Yeah, we
players
got a
in
lot.
last season.
There's like 10
But
picks.
obviously, the
and
two being the
four
Western
players.
Conference finalists.
And
I
the
don't think
players
there's
are
anything
playing well
different
for
with
us, like
those,
Caden
those three
Hamill.
teams, Everett, Kelowna, and Prince Albert. Pretty happy to be
We got
playoff teams. And have these
Ryan
lottery odds as
Pierce,
well.
I think.
So today we are going to be starting with the
my
U.S.
God, one of my
Priority
team's
Draft
players.
Lottery. So Taylor, how is this different from the WHL Prospects Draft Lottery?
Yeah, we do them a little bit different, Cami. So the lottery for that, there's 6 balls. Each team in the lottery gets a ball into the machine, and they'll draw the first ball, which will be the 6th pick. The second ball drawn will be 5th. So you really want to be last in this draft. That receives the first overall pick in the U.S. draft.
Okay.
And we've seen talent like Florida Panthers draft pick Grayson Sachin come up through this route. How have teams changed their
interesting.
approach to the U.S. priority draft?
Yeah, well, I think we've seen more success recent years, and Grayson's a perfect example of that. I think we see players like that really starting to open up a path for other U.S. players. And we look at our draft last year, the top 3 selections in the U.S. draft, Brody Gillespie, Cruz Waltz, and Noah Ta'amu, have all signed SPAs in the Western Hockey League and are looking to make
Standard
impacts
player
this season
agreements.
for
That's
their
the
clubs.
SPA is.
The U.S. Priority Draft Lottery was held prior to the show.
So
It's now time to reveal the results.
here we
The
go.
6th
Let's see.
pick belongs
Doesn't
to the
affect me.
Kamloops Blazers. The Edmonton Oil Kings will pick 5th. The Tri-City Americans will select 4th. The 3rd pick belongs to the Calgary Hitmen.
Oh,
The
wow.
Seattle Thunderbirds own the 2nd pick, which means the Regina Pats will select 1st overall in the 2024 WHL U.S. Priority Draft. Congratulations to Regina. Now it's time to see
Regina
who will
gets
win
first.
the Landon DuPont sweepstakes.
Ugh.
Here's how it works. There are 21 balls in the machine. Only 1 ball will be drawn, representing the team that wins the lottery. Only 3 teams have a chance to win 1st overall. Those teams are Everett, Tri-City, and Kelowna. Prince Albert can pick as high as 2nd, Edmonton can move up to 3rd, and Calgary can
So
climb
I think
to
that
4th.
means we can. That's
After
why
the
we
ball
can't. go less
indicating
than
the winning team is drawn, no other balls will be picked, and the teams will fill the remaining spots based on the lottery standings. Western Hockey League Vice President of Hockey Richard Dirksen will reveal the winner after this.
Yeah,
After
for
what?
sure. I mean, I'm super happy I made the decision to go to the WHL, and I was super lucky to land in Regina. It's just so cool to kind of look at all the names on the wall of
Evan McKenna's
historic franchise,
crazy player, by the way.
obviously,
He have
and, to
97
have my
points
name
this
there
year.
is really special.
Bernard Zaloti scores!
It's such a
Special
first-class
player.
organization there, and I've been able to kind of enhance my development, I think, and it's been a lot of fun. So
Hey, Clump,
I've really
how
enjoyed
are
it.
you?
I'm happy that I decided to go to the Western route.
But just to recap, the U.S. priority draft, I wasn't affected by that lottery. However, our team is probably going to pick no worse than 2nd overall and potentially 1st.
That you
this
can
is an
be
exciting day.
focused on it, and if it doesn't work out, you haven't sold.
His kids are really good, by the way.
You know what I
They're
mean?
coming
So
up-
this is
He's
a
just
great
coming up
path
in the
that
NHL
You
draft.
can really go for it.
Well, we're gonna
along
see
with
really
keeping all the
quickly
doors
here.
open, if it isn't.
It's 2
awesome.
seconds. Here we go. I'm gonna shut up now.
With the 6th pick in the 2024 WHL Prospects Draft, the Calgary Hitmen.
Calgary.
The 5th pick in the draft belongs to the
Oil Kings.
Edmonton
Okay.
Oil Kings.
So I think they were 5th and 3rd in the U.S. priority, but this is obviously kind of more
The
important.
4th pick in the 2024 WHL Prospects
be-
Draft, the Kelowna Rockets.
I think that means
This means that the Prince Albert Raiders have won the lottery and will move up 2 spots, meaning the 3rd pick belongs to the Tri-City
Americans?
Americans.
we win first.
The 2nd pick, the Prince Albert Raiders.
Everett Silvertips.
And the 1st overall selection in the 2024 WHL Prospects Draft belongs to
Wow.
the Everett Silvertips.
Oh my God. What?
Congratulations
That's
to Everett, which will select 1st overall in the 2024 WHL Prospects Draft.
Woo!
The Silvertips have never drafted higher than 3rd, which came back in 2003. The U.S. Priority Draft is set for Wednesday, May 8th,
All
and
right.
the WHL Prospects Draft will be held on Thursday, May 9th. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my God. Wow. 1st overall belongs. Let's just leave that there for a second. So I was looking on our team website, everettsilvertips.com, and we have not had a top 5 selection since 2003. And if you look at our draft history, many years, and I should just pull this up, we didn't even have a first pick, but we consistently have finished, tops, not only in the U.S. division, but in the league, as well as in, CHL. So if you look at where we're at, first of all, actually, I think we should look at, just to clarify so everybody understands how crazy this trade was. Last year, the situation was this, right? Kamloops was hosting the Memorial Cup. Seattle and Kamloops were the top two teams in the league. They eventually faced each other in the final, but you can see they both made deals with their first round picks. So they went all in. Seattle won the league championship, but no matter what, because they were the host team, Kamloops was able to play in the Memorial Cup. So by trading for Olen, Zellweger, and Ryan Hofer, they were guaranteed to play in the Memorial Cup, and we knew that. So that was amazing. Fast forward, it was a very expensive deal because Olen's a superstar player. Like you can see, he's played 17 NHL games already. So he's like an AHL All-Star this year. Hi, Nicola. How are you? So just to recap, the Everett Silvertips and the WHL team that I scout the U.S. for, we've won the U.S. or not the U.S., but the regular Bantam draft lottery. That means that we are in contention now for what everybody's saying is the Landon DuPont sweepstakes. Landon DuPont's a smaller but insanely talented, high skill set, incredible skating defenseman. And he would absolutely be a huge impact to whoever drafts him. Oh my God, this is kind of wild. Do I have anything to celebrate here? I have like hop water. Does that count? It's not beer, so it's hop water. Okay. I don't know if YouTube kicks people off for doing stuff like that. Congratulations to all Silvertips. Big day for Everett is right. Franchise player to build around. So, I mean, so just to recap, we gave up Olen Zellweger and Ryan Hofer. You knew Zellweger was at the end of his WHL career, an opportunity for him. We weren't going to have an impact. We assessed, like we were still, pieces away from having a big impact. So we make a huge trade. And when I say huge, 10 picks and 4 players. And I think 3 of the 4 players are pretty impactful in our lineup this year. Plus now we've got the first overall selection this year, but that's not where this ends. Oh, excuse me. I'm just this is how the trade shook down. So we traded Olen Zellweger, who's now playing in the NHL, right? He was in the AHL at the beginning of the season with San Diego. Anaheim second round draft pick, played for Team Canada twice, won 2 gold medals. Is it 2? Yeah, 2. Presumably is the reason why they were able to trade away, along with, a couple other really good young defensemen, Minchikov and Tristan Luneau. Anaheim, by the way, had 3 defensemen of the year, including Olen. So Olen was the Western defenseman of the year. OHL was Minchikov, and then Tristan Luneau was in the Quebec Maritime League. So we traded those guys. That gave them a chance to play in the Memorial Cup final. What we got back, Caden Hamel, who is now drafted by the Seattle Kraken, Rylan Pierce, and then we have Jack Baker, Drew Englot. All right, so that's what it was. So 2 of the 3 are on our roster, 2 defensemen there. And then this is what the bounty is. First pick this year, but this is not where this ends. Next year, there's a first pick. A second also this year, guys. Woo, this is crazy. A first round pick in 25, a first round pick in 26. Now, unfortunately, Kamloops did not win the Memorial Cup. They didn't win the league championship. But, they were there. They were right there. And, for us, we don't want to trade an Olen Zellweger, but, at the end of his career, you give him an opportunity. He's played 17 NHL games already. Hi, Jerry. How are you? Thanks for joining. So just to recap, the Everett Silvertips, we won the draft lottery, essentially. I think the draft lottery was technically won by Prince George, which led them to move up 2 spots, and we moved up to first overall because of that. It's a crazy day. So if you look at, the significance of this, the player that we're talking about that most likely, and this is not guaranteed, is Landon DuPont. And if you look at Landon DuPont, He's the son of a guy by the name of Mickey DuPont. He played in the Canadian School Hockey League for Edge, which is a really successful academy. He's from Calgary, Alberta. There's his dad, Mickey DuPont. And Mickey played, I think, for the Calgary Flames. Yeah, Calgary Flames. And he was a smaller defenseman in an era where that was really tough. And he played right up till 2018-19. Wow. A few games. So he had a cup of coffee in the NHL. So it was kind of still in an era where maybe those smaller, faster, talented offensive D weren't really as appreciated as they are now or as effective as they are now. He played Kamloops Blazers, which is kind of ironic. His dad. All right, so fast forward. If this ends up being who gets selected on May 9th, he's coming in. He's got 62 points in 30 games. He's a little over 2.03 points per game. They were saying Connor Bedard was 2.7. However, he's a defenseman. And if you watch this kid skate, wow, he is really a really special skater. I mean, like, Olen Zellweger is an elite skater at any level. Landon DuPont is at that level. Maybe he might even be higher. You don't know. Like, it's pretty crazy to watch him on the ice. Like, his forward direction skating is like insane. It's like he's on roller skates. And he's got incredible offensive instincts as well. And you'll see, I think he's number 2 or oh, maybe not in this. He's not. Number 10 there. No, I thought he was 2. Oh, he's 10. All right. I think he doesn't wear that number this year. But you can see the way he effortlessly opens his edges, closes edges, goes from one edge to another. Like, he's just ahead of everybody. Nobody can keep up. This isn't like an elite level. Like, in the CSHL, like, it's not like there's not great players coming out. There's super players. And there's other great players in this draft. Watch this drop pass. I don't know why I thought he was. Is that him 5? Maybe that's it, 5. There we go. Why is he wearing 10 in that? That was weird. I think that was on maybe the year before. So, hi, RJ Calabro. So I just figured I would go live for this. This is a big day for the Everett Silvertips in the WHL. In case you've missed it, first overall draft pick in the upcoming entry draft in May. The guy that's rated the highest is probably Landon DuPont. He's a 5'10", 5'11" defenseman, elite skater, elite hockey offense, franchise player for sure. I think the only X factor is if he isn't committed to the league, then do you take a risk on drafting him first overall? I can't. I don't know. That's for our team to figure out. But this is an exciting day. In the U.S. draft, I was trying to figure out where I'm picking. Am I picking like 15th or something? That's my guess. So let's look here. Let's look at the league standings. Yeah, he's a special player. And then I'm just going to show you this. So this is the overall standing. So there was a draft lottery for the U.S. entry draft, and that was the bottom 6 teams picked. So that was decided. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, where are we? Wait. Oh, we're the other way. Sorry. I'm looking in the opposite direction. 1, 2, 3, 4th. So out of 22 teams, what am I picking? 18th or 17th? So it's like 22nd, 21st, 20th, 19th. Yikes. 19th! I got to sit around for 19 picks and watch everybody pick everybody over from the U.S. draft. Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, this is interesting. I haven't looked into this, but it's a 3-year deal. I'm assuming this is a 2-way contract. Let's take a look at that contract. $845 a year. He's from Lethbridge, Alberta. Played for the Kamloops Blazers, right? 7th round draft pick. And he signs his entry-level contract. He will get $70,000 signing bonus each season with a $775,000 base salary, but his minor salary is $82,500. So if he's playing in the AHL, he makes $82,500. He's getting the $70,000 bonus. So, total compensation would be $152,500. pretty good to play in the minors. In the NHL, that bumps up to $775 base salary, which would put him at a higher total comp. It just depends how many games he plays in the NHL. Yeah. All right. This is kind of crazy. All right. So just to recap, Everett Silvertips. I should probably put it up on like a banner or something, right? It's like first overall draft pick in the upcoming May the 9th draft. On May the 8th is the U.S. entry draft. So I think I picked this is the worst I've ever had, which is 19th. What I don't know, and I still don't have an answer on, is does the order reverse? And I don't even, I asked that because in the past they keep changing the rules in the U.S. draft. So the entry draft part is new. So Regina Pats, let's see, this is what affects me the most. Regina Pats get first overall pick in the U.S. entry draft. So this is players basically from Minnesota across to California. So the order of selection, do I pick 19th? Oh, yes. And I pick 41st. Great. So they're not reversing it. So I got my answer. Ugh. All right. Well, guess I got to pick the best, 19 guys that I want and see, we'll have differences of opinion. So I'll probably get someone better than that. And I guess we'll see where we land. So that's fine. And then the second pick is in the 41st. So this is what I get to draft on the May the 8th, and then May 9th. It's tricky. It's not easy. We have not, it's like a process, right? Because NCAA says, oh, those guys are professional. We're like, why? Well, you give them stipend and building, like you give them scholarships, building, and it's their rules, right? So it's a game, ice hockey or Run with Kings. So yeah, it's a game. Salut, Steve. And just to finish up on this, it is definitely tricky to get prospects to commit, even not even this the U.S. priority draft, but a regular draft. Now, I think it was interesting if you watched when they announced the U.S. order, the last year, the top 3 picks all signed like standard player agreements. So that's a very good sign. And it's not easy. And, it's like tough because they all think they're going NCAA and, they'll wait. And they don't want to ruin their eligibility, right? So it is what it is. I think the best that we can ask for is that a player comes to camp and you see our phenomenal building. You see our pro style training. We have elite coaching. Like, what are we missing? We had nothing. We average 6,100 fans a game, and you're not sitting around from the time you're 16 to like 18, 19, waiting to go to the USHL, which then you're sitting around waiting to go to NCAA. And that's what happens. The most important years, 16, 17, 18, a lot of guys are sitting around. They're not playing the best competition. So what's better? Go to an elite league. You get drafted at 18 to the NHL. It's a very expensive mistake for a lot of players. Now, NCAA, like obviously they've got the U.S. development program. So people always want to make that. That's very prestigious in the U.S. So if you're a top player, that's a risk, right? So for us, we're hedging the same thing. It's like, will they report to camp? If they come to camp, we at least have an opportunity to show them the level. They've never played that level ever. That's just reality. Like you're playing at a level you've never seen, and it's really, like ooh. Some guys it's intimidating, and some guys it's like eye-opening, right? But then you've got the factor of education. But if you look at WHL, CHL teams, we have a phenomenal education package. So if players don't, become professional hockey players, and they have 18 months to decide at the end of their CHL career, we pay full, I think it's books, tuition, and I think it's boarding, the equivalent of that. It would basically pay for an in-state university. So if you're going to an in-state school, it would pay for that. So that's the sell, right? It's like, well, if you want to be drafted and you are a top player, why would you not come to the CHL? It's crazy. Now, yes, you go to U.S. development, and those guys have a lot of high profile, and they've done a phenomenal job. And we've seen a lot of those picks. And then maybe they go to USHL and maybe they go NCAA. But those are, they're not developing them, in my opinion. Like, I feel like, how do you develop someone when you're playing 40 games a year? Like 45 games in the NCAA. And the US development guys, it's interesting because they skim the top 23 players at 17 years old, and they have to have them playing 19 and 20-year-olds in the USHL to have any competition. So it's kind of weird, right? It's like, or you could just go and play against the best 16 to 20-year-olds in the world. You know, you're guaranteed an education package if you don't turn pro. And a lot of our guys turn pro. And I think that's the bet. Like if you're a top player, sign, we're very conscious of it. We don't want to sign someone we're not going to play, especially if it's a 16-year-old. We can't sign them and sit them. They got to play. I think it's like they have to play like 80% of the games. So that's really, the thing you're battling against, right? And I think honestly, it's really simple. Like we are not an alternative. The WHL is the premier place for 16 to 20-year-olds in the world, like, or OHL or Q. And we have a prestigious, championship with the Memorial Cup. We have pro size and style buildings, like 6,100 fans a game, sometimes 10,000 a game for Everett. You're you're like 40 minutes to Seattle. You're an hour to Canada. It's a pretty phenomenal, setup. So we cannot draft players. Like NCAA is old. Let me just state that, right? Guys are they don't play NCAA till they're 19 or 20 usually. Macklin Celebrini is a very special player, and he's playing at 17, 18 for a reason. Macklin played the Tier 1 Elite League for the San Jose Junior Sharks. His dad, Rick, is like the vice president of athletic development for the the Golden State Warriors. So he moved from Canada to the Bay Area, played the San Jose Junior Sharks, went to Shattuck St. Mary's in Minnesota, was drafted first overall in the U.S. draft in the WHL by Seattle, and did not report. So you think of all this stuff is happening before NCAA. You're ways from NCAA. This is guys that are pro age players in school pretending to be amateurs. Now, some of them are, right? They won't pay them. They don't really pay them. They got, weird, funky things in there to compensate them now with with a name and likeness deals where it's like, oh, we'll put in a trust for you. We can't give you money. That's corrupt, but we'll take your money. That's not corrupt. Okay, whatever. Or you just come and you develop and you play, and it's not about politics and it's not about nonsense. And that's kind of the pitch to me. I mean, I think it's like, here's a phenomenal education package. Here's world-class coaching. You play 68 games in front of a phenomenal, fan base of 6,100 a game. You have world-class training facilities. All of our players are student athletes, and you get a guaranteed education package if you're a U.S. player, particularly. It's like, usually you're getting the education package mostly up front, where it's like you get 3 years guaranteed upon signing and you get a year for playing. So it's 4 years of education, covers in-state tuition, books, and I believe boarding. So it's a pretty phenomenal opportunity. Like it shouldn't be considered an alternative, but people trust what they know. And it's obviously, if you got legacy going to an American university, you understand what NCAA is, it's on TV all the time. There's a lot of hype around it. But the truth is, like, think about Dustin Wolf, who was our goalie, turns pro at 20. He's playing in Calgary now the last 3 years, and for the Wranglers and Stockton before that, AHL goalie of the year twice, all before he's 23, 22. So he's 20, 21. What would you rather be doing? He's making money, and now he played 7 or 8 games in the NHL, and he's the goaltender apparent, heir apparent there. Which would be the Canadian Hockey League. But it's, it's a competition because they consider, they try to say, oh, you lose your NCAA eligibility by signing in the Canadian Hockey League. Those guys are pro. What's up?
I mean, 3:30 appointments.
Okay. So that's the deal, Ryan. It's it's either or. So the way I look at it, between 16 and 20, the best place to develop and become a true, top player is the WHL. And we're not going to sign an American guy unless we know we can make our team and sign. You can go to camp on your own dime and it doesn't affect your eligibility. So I think it's just like, show up, go to camp, experience it, understand it, be open-minded. Because really, if you're serious about being a pro hockey player, why wouldn't you go to the Canadian Hockey League? it's a much better route. Like you're getting drafted in 3 years, right? Because the NHL draft is for 18, right? So 18-year-olds. So if I can get it, if you're a middling player, maybe you don't, but you're guaranteed an education package. So if you can't turn pro, and pro could be Switzerland, it could be the ECHL, it could be AHL. Like, we've got guys all over the place. And maybe you say, no, yeah. And I think this is what people realize, but it's always a question mark, and there's prestige with NCAA. But for me, if you're a US born player, like, it's worth it for you to educate yourself and understand this is the better route at, if you look at given years, 16, 17, and 18 years of age, this is the better place to play by far than anywhere in the US. I mean, like, USHL, you're not going to make until you're older. And, you don't want to go NOL route. So the North American Hockey League is probably not the ideal route, although it can work, and then you got to go NCAA. If players, I get it. If you make US development program, totally get it. But then you look at Grayson Sachin, went to the US development program. He was picked first overall in the US priority draft, played at Shattuck St. Mary's, went to USA Hockey development program, didn't play as much and develop as much as he thought, switches gears and goes to Seattle. Now he's been traded to Edmonton, and that's, I think, where his family is originally from. And then you look at hey, how are you, Enertap? So just to recap for Enertap and anyone else, I mean, the overall level of play at the given age group is higher. I think maybe, so just to recap for Enertap, who's just popped in, the Everett Silvertips have won the WHL Priority Entry Draft Lottery. That means we pick first overall. A lot of people talking about Landon DuPont potentially being that first overall pick, but I guess we'll see. From a talent and ability wise, for sure. You obviously have to do your due diligence. We were just talking about the competition between the CHL and NCAA for players, and I think that's a reality for even a player like him. I think that those are players that they're going to go after, and there's lots of options there. Can you tell so ahead of time, right? Like, listen, NHL is like a great, great league, obviously, right? So I think you can. Like, there's guys that when Olen Zellweger was drafted, even before he was drafted, and he played at the Holinka tournament, I think Dennis was actually the coach then. And everybody was talking about Brant Clark. Brant Clark's going to be as an elite, what do they call it? Hockey IQ player, little weird skater. But you could see Brant Clark's going to be a top 10 NHL pick, right? So then we saw Olen there. And we knew Olen, obviously, because we drafted him at 14. And you see Olen on that world stage. And you're like, if you're looking at Brant Clark saying this guy is a genius level hockey IQ, what is this guy? The only difference between them is one guy's 6'2" and one guy's 5'9". But if you know Olen off the ice, he was in better shape. He's stronger than anybody on the team at some point, because he's trains like really, really hard. So you could see Olen skating, his skill set, and on that world stage, you could see he was the best of the elite players at the 17s. And then you go fast forward a year later on Team Canada, and then Team Canada again won 2 gold. So you could see Olen Zellweger at some point is going to be in the NHL. That was kind of seemed fairly obvious. You got to knock someone out for that, right? Like, someone's losing their job for you to take their job, and that's always tough. Olen's played 1 season in the AHL. Is an AHL All-Star game, and he's already played 17 games in the NHL. Now, what will he be in the NHL? That's up to us next, right? Yeah, and Clark's been on and off the roster. I think he's totally in the game. Thank you, Intertab. This is an exciting day for the Silvertips. So just to recap, this is the U.S. priority, which I picked 19th. So that's not so fun. That's because we're a top 4 team in the league. And I noticed in the second round, I kept asking this. I don't think I got an answer, but now I got an answer. I picked 41st after that. So we don't reverse the order. Looking at recent players that were drafted first in the U.S. priority draft, Blake Fiddler signed with Edmonton. Grayson Sachin ended up going to Seattle, now is also in Edmonton. Brody Gillespie has signed a standard player agreement. Here's all the players. Like if they're from these areas, this is what I'm kind of keeping an eye on. It's really tough for us to get Minnesota guys, but there's a lot of good hockey players there. You know, we'll see guys from California, Colorado are primary. There are some guys from Idaho. There's one kid from Kansas that I know is pretty good, and he's playing somewhere else, not playing in Kansas. Sometimes there's some good players from Alaska. This year, I think the 2010 Alaska guys might be a little better. Arizona's got some good players. So those are kind of, I'm seeing them. I'm usually flying away to either Dallas or Minnesota or Arizona to see all the teams come together. You know, LA Junior Kings, Junior Ducks of Anaheim. Sometimes there's another California team, like the California Bears usually have a team at our age group. And that's a really interesting program. San Jose Junior Sharks. And then you got like Colorado Thunderbirds. You got the Rocky Mountain Rough Riders there in Colorado. Now you've also got an academy in Colorado. So Okanagan is putting an academy in Colorado. And there's actually some really good players there. Like I'm looking at that team and there's some legit guys. Of course, yeah. So like, you know, we're talking to the families all through the season. We'll talk to everyone that we're thinking of drafting, or I will, and you're sending out questionnaires. So you're getting feedback and they'll give you how committed they are or are not. And sometimes it's not always honest, or maybe you got to read between the lines. I don't know what the philosophy is there. It just depends. I think most of the time they're trying to put the same systems in the AHL that they're in the NHL, and they're looking at it as a feeder system. So you'll have some veteran guys to help a team be successful, but then 25 and under has been the trend of putting your top prospects in the AHL. So they're getting paid to play hockey there, and if they can't stick in the AHL, you put them in the ECHL. So if you're getting drafted in the NHL, it's a really useful thing is get drafted, right? Like that makes it a little more obvious you're going to play in one of those spots. Of course. Well, I mean, so this is pretty damn exciting. Having the first overall draft pick, I don't get to pick real high with, maybe people know who we are. I think players know who we are, but you don't realize how many good players come through Everett and what a phenomenal scenario it is here. Like, so this is crazy. And this is a result of that trade. I was talking about Olen Zellweger and Ryan Hofer last year. Prince Albert from Seattle, similar. Seattle made some really aggressive trades to bring in Colton Dock, which is Kirby Dock's brother. And they won the championship in the WHL, and then they lost in the Memorial Cup final. Tri-City picks third, Kelowna fourth, Edmonton fifth, and then Calgary sixth. And we pick again at 19 because it's our own first round pick. And Seattle did deal themselves back in, by the way, this year. So they did move out some of their their remaining players from last year, and because they knew they weren't going to be nearly as good this year. Guys graduate, right? That's the big thing. So let's see, because we have another pick in here, right? So in the second round, we have 19. Do we have another draft pick here? I thought we did. I thought we had another second round pick. Am I blind? Everett? No, I guess not. Well, that's interesting. So a lot of the guys you are seeing ranked for the NHL draft, came through our league. Right. So this is where we get them. We draft them generally from, tier 1 elite league in the US, from prep schools. And then in Canada, there's like prep schools like the Canadian School Hockey League is a big deal. So there's a lot of academies there. There's also, I think that's primarily where they're coming from. If you look, CSSHL. And then we get 2 import players. You're right. That's right. That was the deal for Parker and Patton. You're right. So we did have it. I was like, I could have sworn we got another pick in that deal, but we did. You're right, because we brought in a couple of veterans, and they've been great. Teague's been awesome, and Bergie's been an amazing, player for us on D, and we're like 4th in the league and 7th in the country right now. So if you look at CHL, that's kind of the rating. But now you got to win, right? We did have some, unfortunate news yesterday. So let's see. Where's the rankings? CHL rankings. Oh my God, my typing. So week 24, we are 7th. What's interesting is like Saskatoon was up around 1 for a long time. Prince George, though, has obviously made some aggressive moves, and they're in first. But all this means is this is a rankings, right? So in the end, you got to win your damn league, and you got to get to the Memorial Cup unless you're the host team. And Saginaw, which is 5th, and generally you try to be a really top team if you're hosting, are hosting this year. So they are hosting in Saginaw. So it would be a dream to go to Saginaw. Now the unfortunate news that we got yesterday was that I think there's different eras in our organization. And I think the last 5 years have been very, very good. So we have a very high hit rate. If you look at, it's more about AHL right now, but Connor Dewar was our captain. He's playing in the NHL. Historically, we've had like Radko Gudas is in the NHL for a long time. He was an Everett Silvertip. Ryan Murray was an Everett Silvertip. He obviously had a lot of injuries in his career, and that kind of derailed him. But he was like a 3rd overall draft pick. Probably, maybe, in retrospect, he would be drafted much later. But he has had a long NHL career. I think, the development of our players the last 5 years, there's a significant difference under Dennis Williams. Sad part is Dennis Williams is leaving, unfortunately, after the playoffs. So after this season, he's going to be the head coach of Bowling Green NCAA. So that's like, what? Darn it. But he's done a phenomenal job for us. The development of players has been absolutely phenomenal. So if you look at the AHL All-Star game, we had like Dustin Wolf, and Dustin Wolf's played 7 NHL games this year. So you can see he's slowly working in. Olen Zellweger's played 17 NHL games this year. Jake Christensen, I think, has played about 30 total games. And with the Columbus organization, he wasn't even drafted, right? He was a free agent signing. The ones that have had problems that really could have and should have, would have, like Noah Juulsen's played this year, but, his career has obviously been affected by the orbital bone, the kind of the concussion-like symptoms from he took a puck in the eye with Laval. But, I feel like he was clearly on a path to be a top 4 NHL defenseman. He's played top 6 minutes in Vancouver this year, which I think is really exciting. I think he still always seems to be having to deal with the results of that injury, which is really unfortunate. And Johnny Fairbrother's been injured, but I thought Johnny was on pace to be a guy that would be a top AHL defenseman and then NHL. And sometimes you have really unfortunate bad injuries. Trying to think of, we have a bunch of guys in the AHL, like Riley Sutter's in the AHL. Gage Gonzalez called up by Tampa Bay Lightning. He was a 2nd-round pick. So that's a guy that scored 1 goal for us the one year, and they came back the next year. I think he scored 38 the next year. 2nd overall pick. He played for Team Canada at some point, just like an extra year really to bloom. So he's been a pretty good story. And you could project like he's a guy that can score. He's got good size. He's shown he can do other things on the ice now at that level. So yes, he's an AHL all-star type player, but he's also getting a cup of tea in the NHL with a pretty good program there. For sure. Velarde was hurt in the OHL. And then Kirby's trying to think if Kirby missed time. I don't know if we got to see Kirby enough. I felt like he was rushed. And you got the injury with Team Canada where he broke his arm or wrist, right? And then he's had like a weird knee injury and maybe a back injury since. So, and the guy that you want to talk about is Nolan Patrick. He missed a significant amount of time in our league too. And that's unfortunately what brought his dad's career to an end. So I was always very worried about that. Not that that's like a straight analogy, but sometimes, things just, there's patterns there, I don't know what it is. I can't really say, but he was hurt in our league a lot too. And so was Velarde in the OHL. He missed a lot of time in the OHL. I feel Velarde's never been healthy. Like if you look at the beginning of his career with LA, it was nonstop problems. It was a known back issue. when I talk to guys in the LA Kings organization just casually, they're like, well, he knows what he's supposed to do and he's not doing it. That was kind of what they said. I don't know what that means. Like, does he have a slip disc? They keep those things, hush hush, but he's had back injury problems for a long, since the OHL. All right. Well, exciting day for the Everett Silvertips. First overall draft pick. Presumably, I guess we'll see. Does it end up being Landon Dupont? If not, like, who will it be? There's a lot of other really interesting players that it could be, I guess. Let me think of who else to keep an eye on. I'm going to think through this for a sec. So I know that there's like Caden Stroder is like a winger. He's pretty good. Jackson Pisani's another good. Chorney's another pretty good player. Brock Cripps, Brock Cripps is a top right shot D from St. George Prep, and he's another smaller, high-skilled defenseman. He could project very high. So I guess it just depends what you need and what you want. And historically, Everett's been great at developing defensemen. So maybe. For sure, and I think that's what has always like been unfortunate about it, because I always felt he was going to be a really, really good player. And you see he can produce offense. But I think the injury issue has been constant. Like, this is not new for him, right? Like, it goes back to when he was in the OHL, including in Kingston, like, including in the LA Kings organization. I think they were always frustrated with him or frustrated with the situation. They were patient and it worked out and they got something good for him. Is PLD going to work out? That's another matter. That's another thing that you got to deal with, right? But man, when he's in, it's frustrating. And I think what you're experiencing is what LA has experienced ever since they drafted him. All right, guys. So I'm not going to stay on much longer. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Just to recap, the WHL, part of the Canadian Hockey League, we draft both. We have kind of three drafts. We have the import draft, which is like European players. We have two very good imports right now. Dominic Ryman played for, what the heck? These graphics drive me nuts. This is like such a weird thing. What is this? I don't know. It's like the Mac thing or something. I don't know if it's Mac or Zoom. We have the import draft. We've got the U.S. priority draft, which we have two picks in. I picked 19th and 41st. And then we have the regular Bantam entry draft. And so May 8th will be the U.S. priority. May 9th will be the regular priority draft. And Everett picks first overall. And we have a shot. Do we pick Landon Dupont? Do we pick somebody else? I guess we'll see what happens. That's where, there's been a lot of work to get to this point and assess and evaluate people. And now there's probably a ton of conversations going on to say like, hey, we pick you. Are you going to sign? And that's the big thing. Thank you so much for joining. I know it was last minute, but I thought, hey, this is a big day. I'm gonna go live and just share this with everybody. Congratulations to all the Everett scouts. Congratulations to all the Everett fans. Thank you to Dennis Williams. Gave me an opportunity, obviously, to do more inside the organization, including taking responsibility for the U.S., not only scouting, but also running the U.S. draft for our team, which has been, a great stepping stone. Sorry to see Dennis go, especially to the evil NCAA. I know he's going back because he's a Bowling Green alumni. So in case you haven't heard, he's leaving at the end of the season to be the head coach of the Bowling Green. What are they called? The Wolves or Falcons, right? It's the Falcons, I think. So we have a scout, Sandro Benin, is he's I think he's an assistant general manager in the Swiss Elite League, and he really has done an amazing job. You're going to see this year in the NHL draft a player from our team, UC Miettinen, and he could be a second or a third round pick this year in the NHL. He's a big 6'3" Finnish player, can play center. I think he'd be a really good wing, and that's one of Sandro's picks. I'm kind of jealous because it's really turned out. I'm really happy for him. It's nice when you see a guy that's responsible for that kind of portfolio. Like, we're still waiting to get our best US guys. And I'll be really excited when we sign guys and see them have success with us over a period of time. And we help them turn pro. That's, your goal. Thank you. And then the other guy we have is Dominic Ryman, who's a Czech player. So the overseas one's a little complicated, right? So usually he gets an opportunity to see them. You're watching video on overseas guys, and then you've got agents, and agents will pitch guys, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Generally, it depends on your relationship with the agent, whether you trust their assessment or not. It doesn't do anybody any good for someone to tell you someone's a great player and then they come over and they can't play, right? That they're not good. That's like, what's the point of that? Nobody wants that. So I think generally people try to be on the up and up, right? And then you'll see them at international tournaments. So you'll see these players in the Holinka. So that's the other place you'll see them. By the time, usually you've picked them before they're in World Juniors. I think usually the European guys are like 17, 18. They're a little older than our guys, but they're ready to play generally. You're picking them because they're going to come over right now. And there's been good success with Finnish players. There have been Swedish players, Czech players. There seems to be a lot of Czech players, and I think that's been a mutually beneficial scenario. If you look at the Czech performance the last 2 years of the World Junior Championship, those players, so think about that, right? Look at the analogy. The minor system and the junior system in Czech is not competitive. Just like Russia, like the MHL, the VHL, these are not super competitive leagues. Nothing like the CHL, nothing like the WHL inside of the CHL, right? That's the best league in the world for 16 to 20. Czech players have been coming over the last 3 to 4 years, especially with the, what's going on with Russia and the war. So the Czech players are coming over, and what happens? Czech is 2 years in a row in the World Junior Finals, I think, right? Am I wrong? Or is it last year for sure? And a lot of those players, you're like CHL, and their development is just accelerated because you're playing a pro style schedule. You're training every day. You're in a big building, so you're under that type of pressure, and you're playing with other great players. There's competition every single night. So you're seeing the Czech players have really benefited from coming over. Why wouldn't that be the case for U.S. players? It is. Like U.S. players that have come over develop faster too. This is a once in a lifetime thing. You can always go to school. If you want to be 22, 23 and play NCAA, that's cool. It's not bad, and I say that, and our coach who graduated from Bowling Green is now going back to Bowling Green as the head coach for a 5-year contract. His family's from there. So I think his wife's family's from there. I think he said his family might be there too, but I think it's his wife's family probably. I have to look at it, but he's been phenomenal for us and really appreciative of him and really sad to see him go that direction. But we've got a big playoff coming up. So this is not over yet. And I think that sometimes that can serve as big time motivation, right? So keep our eyes open. It's going to be tough playoffs. There's a lot of good teams in the WHL, but our first round's against Vancouver. It starts on Friday night in Everett. All right, everybody. Congratulations again to fans. This is a big day for scouts. I'm excited for them. I know they bust their butt and they're in the arena, and I have a lot of respect for our scouting staff. And congrats to the ownership and management too. I think this is for everybody. Having a first overall pick is a big, big, big deal. It's really exciting. I'm super pumped. I can't believe it's real. All right, guys, have a wonderful night, and I will catch you. I think I'm going to come back on Hockey Nation Live next week, and I'm always happy to chat with people on Twitter during the day. See you guys later.